Yeah.
Boom.
It is like looking at the people that fixate on the little parts, it kind of splinters them. You have like you're saying, it's only if all you focus on is not drinking, and that's your whole identity, and that you value that, right? There's a value,
Right, that's the thing.
then it creates not only that you have they're very uninteresting beyond the fact that you don't drink, but also it almost demands a kind of self-righteousness.
Yes.
Because you believe that's so valuable and you do it. You actually walk the walk, but you see all these other people not doing it and you judge yourself and them by the same standard, and you're better than them. And that your standard is not drinking. And so it's a ridiculous standard even. And it's too low. It's too low of a standard.
Yeah. My thing is that you should not be able, like, it should not be difficult to say no to drinking is kind of the thing I think of. But also you should be able to choose to drink actively, but not let it, like, you turn into a loose cannon, like the people who go to like from really restrictive homes and they fly off the handle as soon as they get like one sip of alcohol, and then they can't control themselves because like, oh my God, I get to finally cut loose, and woo, they spit off like a tornado.
You know this, but there's a dog named Cat.
Yes.
It was a service animal, not an emotional support animal, like an actually trained and bred. And
incredibly well trained.
Yeah, and they have to find these, they breed these dogs to be able to do a whole bunch of different things, and then they train them constantly.
Right, don't they have to do it like since they're puppies, and then it's like for years?
Yes, they're born into it.
Yeah.
And they're born into it, they're bred.
Yeah.
So they pick the best of each litter after they've trained them to reproduce and so on. So they can have the perfect kind of dog for the job. And this dog clearly didn't get to play enough, because when we would play with the dog, I would freak out. We didn't like go to the ball, be like, oh my God, work. Just keep running, keep playing fetch, like to the point of exhaustion.
Right.
Where we had to be like, we're stopping now because you're going to die.
Yeah, because you don't know how to like regulate yourself.
Yeah,
effectively.
Can't regulate the play drive.
Yeah.
Because during development, play was so controlled that the dog never developed the neurology that inhibits and balances. So there's just the drive, and it's never been self-regulated. It's always been externally regulated. Then you give that dog a little bit of play in the future where it's supposed to self-regulate, and it just doesn't have the tools.
It just doesn't understand.
And that's all number of people who have been controlled throughout their childhood, is that then they get to college and they act like fucking psychos, drinking like maniacs, sleeping with everything that moves.
Right.
Right. They're totally off the rails.
Especially off the rails because it's like the first time there's no adult who tells them, hey, you got to do your homework or show up for class, whatever it is.
As children and young adults, they had offloaded the regulatory system onto some external person. And then when that person disappeared, they no longer had any regulator at all. And off to the races.
I wonder, it's interesting you say that, because as you're describing that, my first thought is like, it's almost like, at least in a modern sense, going to college was kind of a surrogate way of giving people a way to create that regulator, right? Because like, there's no good way to do, I mean, there are good ways to do this. Maybe like we talked about in previous, is like coming of age stories or like those kinds of things. But like in the modern sense, it was like, you just kind of go to college and you just say, well, you're going to have to figure it out the hard way. And there's some fraction of people that don't figure out how to do it. And they either drop out of college or don't learn a whole lot.
Some of them ruin their
lives for any number of reasons. And so the question becomes like, how do you, like, what is like a healthy way of giving people like the on-ramp to go from, parents and teachers give you that external regulation to then the individual creating that regulatory internal compass, whatever you want to call it, to have the tools in which to.
We really screwed kids over.
Yes.
In doing this, we've inverted adulthood and childhood in a way where what should be happening is that childhood is this incredibly protected space where even if you get injured, you're going to bounce back way easier than you are as an adult.
Totally.
If you make mistakes socially, you're going to bounce back better. You're going to handle all these. It's going to be easier. you're not going to go to prison. If you're 11 years old and you throw a rock through the window of some business, you're not going to prison. It's going to be a big deal, and you're going to have to deal with that. But you're protected. Even society kind of carves out a certain amount of protection for you.
And they kind of turn a blind eye and say, hey.
Yeah.
Unless it's significantly bad enough.
Yeah, it has to be pretty egregious. And that means that you're free to make the mistakes. And you should be free to make the mistakes. A lot of mistakes. Make them now.
Part of
when
me
you can bounce back from it.
I was wondering, like, instead of making things easier, because I feel like as we've gone through, at least as far as I've heard, is like things have declined and deteriorated even further. Like math and reading score is like, go easier on the kids is kind of like the motto. It's like, oh, they're going through so much already. Like, we shouldn't push them. But I almost feel like it should be the opposite. At least within the appetite of the student or the child themselves. Like, if they're interested in like striving, yeah, keep fueling that fire so that while they're young and pliable and, can absorb shit like a sponge, then give them that more leash so that by the time they're ready to jump into the world, they've experienced way more than, in a cloistered environment.
Yeah.
So that by the time they're ready to jump out on their own, they have this huge width of experience that they can kind of piggyback from and say, well, I really like this thing over here, so maybe I should try to do something similar to that thing. And then keep, because eventually you have to narrow, right?
Okay, so I want to give it sort of its opposite.
Okay.
Where you have, in the same dimension, you have, you still have a challenging of kids, and then you're giving them all these hoops to jump through. And very young, you're being like, you need to sit down and you need to learn, you need to do this. And here's mathematics, and here's history, and and it's like, we're just going to put nose to the grindstone all the way through college.
Right.
Like crazy. And so there's like drive, do better, get this done. It has its dark side. And that's a very controlling, detrimental element. That's actually the opposite of what I was talking about earlier. That it's actually the thing that's too regulating on kids' behavior. And it's not allowing them to actually grow. It's stifling their growth and their ability to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes and to self-regulate, to do all these things. It's a machine that's wringing out
it's like too
all the life. It's turning them into automata. And then I've met these people, they make it to college, and all they can do is follow the rules. They have no idea. They have no, in some sense, they have no real originality. They don't know how to handle relationships. They don't know how to deal with uncertainty.
Well, yeah, because it's not in a textbook, or if there's not like a follow these steps.
Their whole life has been checking boxes.
Right. Well, that's what I worry about, like some of these standardized test things. Like it doesn't teach you how to think. It teaches you how to get to the right answer.
Yeah, which is a problem.
And I know that sounds really meta, but it's
right. And so you have this dual issue where at the same time that we're asking for more of a challenge for kids, we also don't want to challenge kids.
Yeah.
You need to give them the free flow. So the meta problem is something like an ordering of these things. Where does the challenge belong? What kind of challenges?
Organize the hierarchy.
What's the kind of, where is this challenge appropriate and where isn't it appropriate? Because if there is no place where you shouldn't be challenging kids, you will suck the life right out of them. You will grind them to bits.
Well, we already know that happens in places like Japan, or, where it's really orderly and
and it happens here as well.
Yeah.
And you have kids that show up and we call them autistic or something, but I think that some number of these kids at least are really just terribly socialized. And that it's not some genetic disease. It's a social.
They've been socialized to operate.
To operate as like a machine. And then they don't know how to operate in social interactions that don't have clear defined boundaries. And it really is a give and take and a kind of nuance and an uncertainty and all of that. And just being able to go with the flow.
Right.
Of any conversation or flirting. God.
Right. Like as soon as we're going off script, oh God, I don't know how to operate.
Yeah. They don't know how to operate. And so you need to be able to give them both the challenge in the right place and no challenge. Let go. There's no rules. There's a place where you can be free range. There's a book called Free Range.
Yeah, I've heard of this book.
Jonathan Haidt has talked about. I haven't read it.
I guess we're kind of highlighting the same thing. Like we use adults with like drinking. We were talking about that, but this same idea is what people grow up in, to this environment where they don't know how to basically oscillate from like focus, task oriented, and then chill out, relax.
Yeah.
Because if you and vice versa, right? Like going from all, all lazy, dopamine, just chilling on the sofa and then motivating yourself to get things done.
There are two different modes and
Yeah.
they inhibit. So you have to, you can't go thinking that you can have both at the same time.
No, it doesn't exist.
Maybe you're really sophisticated and you can move through the two pretty quickly. But part of what meditation is a way of getting out of the task mode and into the present.
Yeah. And I feel like we as a society elevate task mode to an insane degree.
Yeah, because the entire global economic system is predicated on unending work.
Yes. Do more, consume more.
All the time.
We're not very good at being.
No.
And I wonder why, all of these podcasts we've been doing is talking about, in a lot of ways, being. Like, how do you integrate? What does it mean to be human? And all the other things that the doing doesn't encompass. We're trying to, it's like we're uncovering, it's almost like archaeology, but at like a spiritual level, we're trying to like shed light on, like, hey, there's all these other facets of human life that we're choosing actively to pretend like we don't need those.
Yeah.
Like those don't solve it. Like those aren't productive.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
And that's the Christian tradition and Jewish tradition understand that there needs to be a Sabbath, that you can work your ass off for 6 days. There needs to be a time where you're not in control.
Right.
Where you learn to let go, be present, let the world run its course, allow the background processing to occur that needs to occur.
It kind of reminds me of like sleep in a lot of ways too, right? Every day we have to we effectively go unconscious. We don't remember unless you have dreams, but you just close your eyes and all of a sudden you wake up the next day and there's a portion of time that has passed. And so it's like we've deluded ourselves into believing that all of us can run 24/7 and be infinitely productive, or at least the idea that, I don't have enough time. Like I need to be doing more with my time. And it's like, wait, hold on. Like, what do you mean? Like if your own natural processes needed time where it's doing nothing while you aren't in the driver's seat, you're going to say that you need to be doing something at all times.
Yeah.
It seems crazy. It's like we've split ourselves into contradictions.
You cut yourself off from reality to some degree, because what you end up doing in a task-oriented mode is creating a map, a representation of the world and you in it, and then calculating how to move through that world to arrive at your objective. Where in being mode, there's no objective.
Right.
And so nothing is considered relevant or irrelevant.
It's not like you can compete in being.
Yeah, you're just hanging out. It's part of why banter's so great. Like, it's meaningless. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, it's all just poking fun and being stupid.
That's the fun. The fun is that the point is that there's no point.
Yes.
There's one of these weird paradoxes, but
the point is you don't even realize that you're not doing
is letting go of the point.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
Again, see, that sounds so paradoxical in this westernized.
Yeah, well, we forgot it all.
Yeah, like the idea of just like, what am I supposed to do next? Like that whole idea.
Yeah.
Is totally foreign to some people.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you, it's almost like getting someone to like take a step back from that. Especially if they're more type A, driven type. Chris Robinson said this before. It's a type A person with type B problems. Society's not going to be like, yeah, you need to learn how to meditate more, bro. Like that doesn't, you don't get any awards for that.
No.
Like learning how to relax, or like, hey, you should maybe stop working so much, unless you're having issues like you're not eating and you can't sleep or whatever.
And even then, it's sort of, I'm sort of speaking for this the kind of task-oriented culture. It would look at these not taking care of yourself things as impediments to doing.
Yes.
You should be doing more. The reason that you take 3 days off a month, and you always have a long weekend once a month, is so that you can do more. And I think that that's just wrong. And I blame Peterson a bit for this, because he really injected that into the manosphere. This idea that you could optimize yourself.
Mm-hmm. So you took it too far, you think?
Yeah, I think that was a mistake. The point of being isn't to be able to do. The point of being is to commune with what is.
Yeah, just take stock of reality or whatever.
Relax.
Yeah.
Just let what is it be, and stop deluding yourself into thinking that you're in control. Partly because if all you're doing all the time is these tasks, and especially if you're good at it, then it's pretty easy. Your world becomes what you do.
Yes.
And then you think that what you do, everything in your world, that it's all about you, that you're the prime mover here and everything is within your control. If you never relax to notice all the things that have nothing to do with you, then you get trapped in a headspace of it's about me.
You elevate yourself in your importance in the things that go on around you.
No one cares.
I know.
No one else gives a fuck about you.
Well, that's the thing is everyone thinks like, oh my God, like if you can be self-conscious and like play these games in your head, it's like realistically, if you're so self-absorbed with you, that means most other people are so self-absorbed with their own bullshit. They don't have any time to worry about what is going on with you.
Yeah. And that's happening everywhere. And then you wonder why people feel isolated, why they can't connect with others. And they have a hard time making friends and all that. If you're in hustle space, are you meeting people? Like really meeting them, not just like bumping into
No,
those
because if you're in hustle
conversations.
space, you're constantly thinking like, okay, how does this person help me get to my goals?
Oh yeah.
You know what
Which
I
is
mean?
like the grossest version.
I know.
This Hollywood plastic smile, calculating how to use one person to get up the rungs of
I
the
know.
entertainment
Like,
ladder.
how do I use you as the trampoline to propel me to stardom?
Oh,
Yeah.
I got to get that soap opera gig.
Yeah. Like, how does that get me an agent? And how does that get me on my next big, like, God damn it.
That makes me like,
It makes me
so gross.
It just makes my skin crawl because maybe I just don't operate this way. But like, I don't know. I enjoy the connecting with individuals. Like, that has never really crossed my mind other than like, are they interesting? Cool.
Yeah.
Like, do they have something that's interesting about them? And guess what? Most people do if you like get them to come out of their shell. Because most people know how to do that.
Getting the shell is partly the doing.
Yeah.
It's I'm here to put on a performance and tell you about my expertise and blah, 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 blah. Look how smart I am. But like, that's all protective. It's all a front. It's a persona.
How do you go one layer deeper than that?
Not
like,
that
why is it that they want to do those things?
It's not that those things aren't useful. They have their
they're functional.
Yeah, they have their place. It's just that shouldn't be the whole thing. And the real juice comes out when you relax.
Yes.
When you ease up, then you really get to see where all the
I feel like one of the things that had to like early 20s was all about like do more, like learning how to work like weightlifting. I always go back to this one because it's such a good microcosm of how this plays out.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I remember being so focused when it's like, okay, go to work, go to school, go to the gym, repeat. And then it was like, where's the rest day? Don't have time for rest days because if I'm not working, I like resting, you're getting weaker kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Where you're so like focused, like you have your perfect split and you can't mess up the split. But it's like, then you end up having to take an off day for some reason. It could be like holidays, like we're recording this now right before Christmas. So you have to take time off. You're either traveling or whatever. And then you come back to your routine. You're like, oh shit, I'm a lot stronger. Like I feel better now that I took 2 days off.
Yeah.
Because you never afforded yourself to take 2 days off because
your body is just deteriorating.
Right. And so you basically have to learn the lesson the hard way, which sounds so silly, but it's like rest is a good thing sometimes. It's like there's a sweet spot, kind of what we were talking about with children and learning. Like too much work, not good. Not enough work, also not good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. They'll think that their vacation or something is rest.
Yes.
But they're just not at work running around everywhere.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they overload their schedule with stuff to do.
I'm going out with the boys, so we're going to go to do this. And we have 3 different bars we're going to hit. And look at all the drinks that we're going to hit. It's like, have you ever just not done anything?
Like, I'm
going to play video games the whole time. And that whole video game system is basically designed to get me to do infinitely. And they never pick up on the fact that they haven't changed their headspace at all.
They're still same shit. Still in the same mode.
Yeah. It's like, okay. And you're not getting anything out of this.
I know.
Like, at least not what you might hope you'd get out of.
I feel like that's one of the things that the speed of society kind of predicates this obsessive doing, right? Like feeding the algorithms, feeding the machines that to generate content, right? Which generates clicks, which generate revenue down, it's all downstream of money, right? And so, but the problem is that if you try to do anything of consequence, doing things faster or more of it, it's the age-old thing of quality over quantity. So we're way on the side of quantity most of the time. and especially like with AI tools, where everyone keeps saying AI slop. I mean, there's a reason people call it that, because it's super easy to just make anything, and then you wonder why there's deterioration at the edges of everything, because now we've chased this quality to its kind of end point, where it's like, how do you scratch the itch effectively by just doing more? And it's like, hey, maybe we need to take a moment to not do anything and actually contemplate something and maybe be uncomfortable with it. And then maybe you get to take a couple of drops, right? Like, how many apples is it or whatever to make juice out of something? Like, it's an ungodly amount of fruit to make juice. That's kind of what I'm getting at with this idea of like, maybe we need to take a moment to pause, extract something of real value that might take people time to contemplate what it even is that we're saying.
Yeah.
And then we can keep going.
Yeah, and there's like 2 points in there that are interesting about this kind of notion of excessive quantity in AI, which sort of assumes that the product is the point.
Yes.
Like the production is the point. And so,
like the output.
right. So it'll just write all your essays for you. Isn't that great? We have these essays. Fantastic. Why would you go through all the trouble to write your own essay?
Like, think about it yourself kind of thing.
Yeah. It doesn't understand that the point isn't the product. The point isn't to write an essay. The point isn't to have the essay. The point is to go through the process of writing, which teaches you how to think, how to understand, to really get you to understand, not just have some explanation on a piece of paper, but for the explanation to be built into you, right, as a person. And that's not something you can just output easily.
Yeah.
You have to spend time with it.
To internalize it.
You have to spend a day of passionate writing.
Yeah.
You don't even need something before that. I read a very brief little piece about a Japanese writer whose name I don't remember, but he talks about how he took a month and he called it like the crash. And he just isolated himself for a month and wrote 10 hours every day.
Wow.
Until you could get into like some crazy psychedelic
Like
almost
flow
state.
Yeah.
Right. Where you're like, he said that he could even hear the voices of his characters talking to him.
That's crazy.
Right. Where you're so at ease. So the whole thing is moving through you, a complete like ego death.
Yeah.
To allow
he's not controlled.
Doing character, which the ego is a representation of yourself in space in relationship to an objective. But if you have no objective, you're trying to get out of the way. The objective dies and you die, which is probably part of what people are afraid of, is that they're like, I don't know what value I have if I'm not doing anything. So he dies and allows all these characters to come through him, and then something unique really emerges out of that month of deep isolation, contemplation, and so on. And that really gives him the space to get out of the way for something genuine, something original to emerge of its own accord. You didn't do it. Something did it through you.
Right.
And that thing then can be returned to and then read again with fresh eyes and edited until it's honed into something, not a raw material, but a diamond. And you have something amazing. And that's a whole thing. That's a transformative process of transforming a person. It in an almost alchemical way, both creates a golden end product and turns you into gold. That it's right, that you work on yourself, right? Now, if you're focused on yourself during that's just more ego. It's the focus on, it's difficult to say. It's a very ambiguous purpose. It's just to try to make sense out of something, not to try to create something, not to grab something, just to
emulate something. Yeah. It's like there's a sense of whatever the moment you live through, there's something that you're trying to make sense of internally. And I feel like even we're doing this by every one of these conversations, because we're doing this weekly in like an episodic way. It's like we're building layers of sediment with each of these conversations. It's like we're circling something, and I can't really say what it is. Like, I have an idea of what it is, but it's like being overly specific would ruin what it is that we might be saying. You know, it'll take someone else's, you know, the viewer or the listener to tease out the theme of what this particular moment that we as the society is going through, to hopefully make sense of it. Because I have a sense of it, but I don't have like a theory. It's like I'm not like a scientist who's got a hypothesis, like, because I'm living through it. So I can't be impartial in that way. I think it's also telling that like you cited this Japanese writer who had to lock himself away in a cabin, but how many stories of writers that are kind of mythologized at this point that have to like basically pull themselves out of their societies, go lock themselves in a cabin, or have some like almost monastic like practice in which to craft the thing that they're called to do.
Yeah, and they're not going away to just make it. They're going away
to give it space. Yeah, because they need to have that like long periods of what looks like where they have to just, and then all of a sudden it's just like a rush of like almost like drug like frenzy where it just comes out of them because there's no other outlet.
what do you do if you try to be a creative and all you're doing is staying in the doing mode the whole time? Then you create the AI slop.
Right.
You
Yeah,
create
if you just
people slop.
if you just force yourself to do not like to say nothing. I mean, I think that's why people always talk about like the death of journalism, is because the journalists they just have to come out with something. But if they
content, just
right, if you just
whatever
come
that
out with
is.
content to put ads on the page, then of course you're not going to have any time to say anything meaningful.
A great example of this yesterday. It was so annoying. It's an article that was like virus or something is going around, or this thing is going around and it's really it's making people cough. I was like, I've had a cough. Maybe I should read this.
Right. Yeah.
Took half the article just to get to say what they were talking about. And they were doing this avoiding thing where instead of saying like whooping cough creates this, this, and this, they say, and this disease creates this, this, and this. And they just keep leading you on. Like, just give me the name of the fucking thing. I'm like, you're so hell bent on like, we got to keep their attention for the 30-second block.
Right.
Like, how would you, I will pay attention to your article.
It needs to be long enough to have a mid-roll ad inserted.
Oh yeah. I was like,
right.
It's so tedious.
See, this is the point, is like, instead of writing, it's writing to have engagement.
It just leech off your attention.
Right.
It's
part of the thing that drives me crazy is that a lot of this is more of like, we have two forms of content where it's like consume fast, right? Like shorts and reels, whatever, just dopamine hits. You can just scroll through dozens of them without even realizing. And then you have this written form, which is basically garbage for the eyeballs, that you've read it and you're like, what did I get out of that? Like, why did I spend 3 minutes to get to nothing? It's like, okay, clearly these are not working. Like the whole system is predicated on false assumptions or bad, what's the word? There you go. Yes. It's bad incentives, because it's like, it's incentivized to have engagement numbers, and which incentivizes quantity.
The attention economy is
that's the right word.
It's a black hole.
I
think that you should just not engage with it. If you can, you don't engage with it at all.
The secret is to turn off notifications as much as possible.
Turn off notifications.
Step one.
And us will have to wrestle with this a little bit. We've talked about how for feeding curiosity, it's like you have a sort of front end that does participate in the attention economy, and then try to get people on the back end that abandons that entirely.
I think that's where like the next form of the internet goes, is where you have kind of walled gardens, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where you respect the people who are making the things you enjoy, or you resonate with those people ideologically or at like a virtue, I guess, level, kind of what we would use in language. And then you build on them, like you say, okay, cool. I like what like the playground you guys are building. So I'm going to opt in to pay the, for your amusement park effectively. And then that way, and then I've even seen some of these places that are like on Substack who are actually trying to rebuild like print media again. Big Think, which I bought their, they tested out their first print edition book. So if you subscribe to their thing, they gave you their first ever print edition in like a magazine form, basically. So they took some of the articles and expanded on some of them, and then put it in a print format with actually good quality, just do all the things you'd expect from a print publication, but this is grassroots. And now they're expanding it for next year so that they're going to do 4 issues in a year, based on like, special edition of 4 different collection of topics in 1 quarter, basically, and try to rebuild journalism effectively by focusing on their values, whatever they've decided they want those issues to be about, which is,
that's great.
Really cool. Because it's like, well, hey, look, it's like actually journalism is trying to come back in like an honest sense. And, obviously it takes time. They're not saying we're going to do an issue a month, doing 4. That seems reasonable. Where they should give themselves room to breathe and breathe life into something and say something that might be interesting instead of just like, okay, we need to just do more.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that the internet we'll see. Who knows where prediction future it might just get so bad that everybody just bows out. But
that would be the other option is more of this like kind of white pill, gray pill maybe, where people just fuck off.
Oh, a ton of people are.
Which is already happening. I mean, when you see all the technologists who are like, yeah, I'm not letting my kids have cell phones or smart devices.
Anytime somebody won't let their kids use their own product, but will let your kids use it, that should immediately raise the hairs on the back of your neck.
Lots of red flags. I was talking about this with one of my coworkers about how we kind of lived through this golden age of like, we had access to certain technology as we grew up, but you still had to leave behind because it was stuck to your house, more or less. Computers were slow and bulky. You didn't have anything in your pocket like these cell phones these days where they're so powerful and you could do anything with them. Because like one of the big things we talked about was like screens, like LCD screens didn't exist back then. Like the best we had was like a Game Boy screen, but if it was too bright outside, you couldn't even see the screen.
Yeah.
If you brought it with you and it was bright outside, you couldn't be glued to your screen because you just couldn't see it. So you had limitations that were kind of baked into the technology that ended up saving from being glued to them too much, or the battery life too bad that it died in a couple hours. So I don't know. We ended up. It's like weird to think about some of the downsides that ended up being like silver bullets.
Limitations aren't inherently bad.
Right.
This is one of the terrible mistakes of our era. We think that any kind of limitation is an impingement in our freedom, which it is, and that is intrinsically bad. And that freedom is intrinsically good. Right? But that's just nonsense. Okay, remove all the boundaries between me and cocaine. I'll be dead in a year. What are we talking about? There's so many. Is the legal ramifications and the self-respect and my responsibilities and all these things are in fact an impingement imposition on my freedom. So what?
Yeah,
if I had perfect freedom, I go crazy. As most, that's what people mean by absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's that the power is an annihilation of the boundaries between you and your fantasies, and then you can act out any fantasy you want.
Yeah, because any thought you have, you can say, I want to make that happen, and then you will, or you can.
Male Pallius said in another way that power is a doorway to dreaming. Yes. But like fantasies don't take into account the other. The other is in respect for the other person and what they need and their emotional state, all these things, what's good for them in the long run.
Right.
All of this is an obstacle to doing what I want. Like if I can just do what I want all the time, you're a psychopath who just uses people up and spits them out.
I feel like we've kind of entered in this weird thing where like, because everything has become so individualistic, right? Like maybe when you're really young, probably up until like a teenager, maybe high school, you're with your parents most of the time. So you have a unit. But as you get older, like leaving high school or college, you basically end up being more and more on your own. And so you end up in this weird, like you become an island moving through the world.
Yeah.
But you're so like, your experience is so specific to like how you manufacture your own situation that like the odds that you bump into another island becomes more and more rare. And it is more exceedingly rare once you leave college and then you're in the working world. Because now most of your time is stuck at work. And we've walled off work such that you can't really like interacting with coworkers too much can be a danger.
Yeah.
Like professionally.
I wonder what the stats were on marriages that were formed.
Working
environment.
Yeah, like our parents older.
Yeah.
In the 50s. It's exceedingly high. I think it was like in the 60 or 70 percentile. Like most people at work.
You meet people where you see people every day.
Right.
You get to know them
I think it was the two biggest places like 30 or 40 years ago was workplace and then like religion or other like community gatherings.
And neither of those. One is forbidden and one nobody goes to.
Exactly. Well, like we've basically shot ourselves in the foot where people can meet each other organically And so then we've created ourselves dating apps, which turns it into a roulette wheel. We've kind of covered this before.
Yeah. But it's just the gamification
of life or of interaction.
Dating.
Yeah.
In the same way that the kind of doing mindset is misses the point in many ways. So too does Tinder.
We basically like circle the drain in all these different ways where it's like, but having your individuality is, we've elevated that to a point where it's like, well, you get to choose what to do with your life. And then we all wonder why we don't know what to do with our lives. When each of us is an island unto ourselves, you're all drifting without a paddle.
And you'll break up. Like if how do you say this? Like if there's nothing external to me that calls me to it, that behaves as a purpose, and I just get to choose whatever I want, I stop being able to choose what I want because I'll focus inward, asking myself, what do I want? What's inward, the wants that are inward, are all impulses. They're
right.
all, I want food and I want sex and I want some water now.
The basal things.
And now it's just, that's what comes out of the body.
Yeah.
The basic stuff.
Right.
And the more you focus in, the more you're just seeing, oh, this impulse, this impulse, this impulse. And you stop being one unified thing and start being slowly but surely subordinate to those impulses.
It sounds like you're almost making yourself more animalistic.
Yeah.
Like if you look at like even like a dog or like a pet,
yeah,
you could see how they respond to the world. Like obviously they're more conscious than some other creatures, but they are ruled by basic things. Are they tired, uncomfortable? Do they want to play? Do they need to go to the bathroom? Like it's pretty, you can intuit a lot of things.
They kind of just move from one thing to the next. It's like the cats. It's just,
especially cats.
I'm going to take a nap and now I'm going to go get pets and now I'm going to go play and then I'm going to go pee and then I go, man, give me food.
Right.
And it's just kind of that on repeat.
Yeah, in and out. It's almost like a metronome too, because they get used to a certain routine very easily.
And then just, that's all they do. And they're not one thing. They're like, their hunger.
Yeah, right.
And
their things.
Yeah, and horniness.
Play mode.
I don't really see those with the cats, probably because they're neutered.
But it's like play mode.
It's these things ruling the whole system.
Yes.
Just which ones is ruling at any given time is in rotation.
Right.
But you can be that way too. You can fall apart enough that you are not one thing, you're many things, competing for command of the body and then moving it around. And you're kind of just a little ego that's gets stuck watching all this. And you might have these moments of clarity where you're like, oh God, what have I become?
And you're conducting it a little bit.
And you'll feel shameful and horrible about this because you know you should be becoming more and you can't, and you're struggling against these addictions that you've now created. And an addiction really is this superordination of one of your impulses over your will. Right.
Interesting.
Right. It usurps.
Yeah. I just haven't heard that word before. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Right. Of one of these things over you.
Yeah.
Right. And usurpation is an appropriate word because you should be in command, and instead something has taken command over
the
you.
Usurper.
And you'll say something. I don't know what came over me.
Yeah. And you hear people say that stuff all the time.
Right. So that's just, it's language expressing, like the metaphor is appropriate. Mm-hmm. It's telling you it's a higher or lower metaphor. It's an understanding of command. So, but the point is that if you don't have something that's superordinate to you, like that you don't subordinate yourself to, then you'll become subordinate to some part in you.
And I kind of had this thought recently. I forget what I was reading, but it was kind of like this thought that society has been so focused on the individual for 40, maybe 50 years, like our lifetimes at the very least. But it's like we've playing this game that a lot of people who are at the top of the hierarchies who don't see this as like, oh, like I need to get as much as I can out of the system, instead of saying, oh, wait, there's going to be a point in time where I'm not part of the system and that the system is going to exist without me. And so there's like this abdication of responsibility in the sense that we need to make sure that the system can run well after I'm not a part of the system anymore, if that makes sense. And so we've basically abdicated a bunch of responsibility where it's like, well, the system's already running fine. I don't need to make any changes.
Yeah,
good.
and now suddenly you have the opportunity to say, "Oh, we're good. I can have anything I want.
Right.
What do I want?" And down you go.
Right. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing. What's happening right now is a whole bunch of people. I'm not painting the blame on any one person in this. It's just a whole lot of people just saying we don't need to make any changes and choosing not to, and then just riding it out at the sunset, and then like, well, there's problems, but that's on to the next guy.
Yeah,
To-
you have this weird dual problem where it's like you've come to this place, and I don't understand all the dynamic for why this happened. What
I
I'm
know.
seeing is like, okay, we're in this place where there's this demand for hyper efficiency and the total subordination of personhood
Mm-hmm.
to whatever this money making machine is, and it doesn't afford any rest. And so when you see the people who are in power in some sense, or even you might even see this in yourself, when you have the opportunity to make a difference, to really think about the future, the extended future, and to do for others, make that self-sacrificing thing and really take on the responsibility of what's good.
Tomorrow.
You're too exhausted.
Yeah.
And you haven't spent any time communing with what is to have any sense of what's good.
Because you need to pick, if you're trying to set up something like a system, any system, right, for tomorrow, like just even getting your own finances in order so that by the end of the year you have more money in the bank account than you had when you started at the beginning of the year. That takes conscious effort to make that happen. You know, like you can't just be like, it'll just work out. So you can't just hope that it works out, because it just doesn't work that way. Human psychology, you're always going to use what you can with what you have in the moment, because we're today oriented things, not tomorrow. It's just the nature of what it is. So you have to like put in, it's almost not really guardrails, but like in a sense it's like guardrails to like, okay, this is the plan. We have to stick to the plan, and you have to reinforce the plan. Otherwise you'll fly off the handle.
Yeah.
At every chance you'll get.
And it's okay. So there's a problem that emerges, right, where we could get right back into this efficiency problem.
Yes.
Where it's like now you have another objective, and now all you're doing is doing all the time.
Paperclip.
And you're, really, it's just churning out content in pursuit of some lower order goal. And it demands an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a question here that demands an answer, which is like, what do you do about that?
Right.
How do you have a goal
but not let it be all consuming?
Right.
Effectively.
But you need a goal, because the goal is what organizes you into a unity. So you don't collapse into multiplicity and gas and addiction and all those things. But the goal can also wring the life right out of you and make you blind to what is real and even the good. And so you have ideologues are a great example of people who now have some weird objective and a system of thought that they consider total, and they impose it on the world. And they say, I'm doing this for the good, but they don't notice that none of it's doing any good.
Right, because they're just too wrapped into
Don't even see the world.
Yeah.
Don't spend the time to rest and
They're
relax.
stuck in the framework, not in the actual reality of the framework.
Yep. Not in reality. They're in an idea.
And not in just an idea, but the ideal of that idea.
Yeah. It is an ideal. You're trapped in an ideal. But that even the ideal is a system of thought. It's a concept. It's not real. It's not concrete. They're not going to reality to see how it's playing out. They're just staying in their mind and being like, this must happen, this will happen, this whatever, and not just totally willfully blind to the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so they commit all kinds of evil and crack a billion eggs and never get an omelet.
Surface of that
in service of the perfect omelet.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't get any fucking omelets.
See, that's why like anything utopian never works, because you're too skewed in one direction.
Utopianism doesn't see reality. It only sees its utopia, and it doesn't even consider reality. Or if you really baked into reality, you really know what's going on. You're seeing people, and you know yourself, and you know the world. You see how difficult human relationships really are. How crazy it is that anybody cooperates with anybody.
Yeah.
Because of how people will get on each other for everything.
Anything.
And you see all the bad that people do to each other all the time. And it becomes a miracle that anything it's working.
If it works. I know.
And if you understand that, then you don't become a utopian. There's no way to be a utopian when you're in that headspace, because it's like, I'll just think like 1% better.
Yeah, right.
Because that alone is crazy.
Well, yeah, it's like when you look at anything, especially now with how monstrous and complex all of modern societies are, the fact that even like transit systems function.
For now.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it.
You know what I
Anyway,
mean? Like stuff like that, where it's
Yeah.
like stuff that feels mundane, or like the fact there's roads. Like we'll complain about potholes, but like,
do you know how insanely difficult it is? Like the weather in Chicago.
yeah, exactly.
It's 35 degrees now, which means that all the snow that
Melting.
was around is going to melt, and it's going to seep into all the cracks of the road, and then it's going to freeze in 2 days again. And just the expansion of that ice is going to crack those
Right. Now
things.
pothole season
Yeah.
is fully upon us.
Just in and out, crushing from the ice. Nature is an unending problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, sorry.
okay, so you have a goal, and you need a goal because it stops you from being chaotic. But some goals can become totalitarian, and they crush you, and they crush your sense of reality and other people and all that. Okay, so is there a goal that doesn't do that? Is there a goal that affords rest? That actually, in service of this goal, you're in a constant state of rest, and not just in a kind of instrumental way where it's like, take 3 days. Long
yeah.
weekend. Every third weekend is a long weekend.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's a lot, and then I can get back to work and be more efficient. So that's an improvement on the alternatives.
It's funny that the optimizer would be like, okay, every 3 weeks I take 3 days.
And I'm not counting on that.
It's just funny that, of course, that you create a system in which it allows you to take rest. It just there feels like a contradiction there.
Yeah,
It seems a little
to
funny.
systemize.
It would seem a little funny.
But I think that's what love is supposed to be. Is that love is the highest possible goal because it accounts for all things.
The thing that's funny is I wanted to say safe space, and I almost don't want to say safe space because of the connotations it has now.
What did you mean?
Like safe space, like your home, right? Like where you have a place that you can go with people you love or whatever, and you can drop pretenses, where you don't have to wear the trappings of your work self, or like you can just be you, whatever you is with the people you care about.
Yeah. Think about what love is in some sense. Like it makes being necessary in every moment, but it's being is necessary for a purpose. That if I really love somebody, meaning love isn't a feeling. A feeling is associated with it. Love is wanting the best for somebody, period. Just wanting the best possible good. And to know what that best possible good is, so that prevents you from being utopian, you have to look at somebody.
The possible is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Doing a lot of you need to actually watch the person and really see what they respond to. Notice what's going to land, what's not going to land.
And what would make the most impact for whatever they need now in this.
What do they need in this moment?
To
help them.
Yeah.
And sometimes sometimes it's nice and encouraging and you're just picking them up. And sometimes you're giving them a reality check.
Right.
That's also good for them.
That's interesting. Because most people think love is always the other kind.
It's not
caring, and so it could be described as coddling.
Our idea of love died and has fractured into something like just cheap, reflexive compassion.
Hallmark movie.
It makes a Hallmark movie maternal coddling from young women who have never had kids and never established a real relationship with somebody, and so project the maternal impulse onto their dog and every fucking lunatic out there.
Projection of maternal instinct across everything.
Oh yeah,
they've actually said there was a guy who did studies about this, where it's like some of the reactionary stuff where people can typically younger women who attach themselves to like social movements. It's misplaced maternal instinct, where they want to mother the downtrodden of the world, whatever that means. I'm not picking any sort of
I think that's right.
But that's really what they see. And then men do this in the other way by becoming entrepreneurial. They instead of having families, they create businesses.
Yeah. Yes.
So we each create our own children, either externalizing into things like companies or the external of other people's children.
Yeah, and
it's a huge problem.
How about just do the real thing instead?
Yeah, no.
It's
Well, that was the
beating
thing I
around
was
the
kind
bush.
of getting. I forget who. It might have been Naval on one of the podcasts, but he talked about this idea of instead of grandiose things, right, societal level things, he called it. This is like a very meta idea, but he's like the way I see like my place, like with my family and my kids, is that in my time on this planet, my job is to reverse entropy in my small domain,
Right.
which means is you get to keep chaos at bay. As for the 50 or 60 or 100 years that you have on this planet, is you keep your little corner of life as organized as you possibly can make it, but not so organized that it's like strict, but you just keep it from degenerating into chaos because it's all it ever wants to do. And so like that, I think, is like one of the best examples I've ever come across, is to like aiming at a purpose without attaching it to an actual identity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the love is the best way to do it.
Right. And that's, I think, there are parallels. He just didn't say love.
And love is even higher than life. Like, because you might say there's like death, entropy, and there's life. And what you're going to do is just fight for life. And that's pretty good. But is it my life? Is it my children's life? Right? Would I choose my life over my kids? That'd be selfish.
Yeah.
Right? Is it the life of grandkids, the community? How large do you want this circle to be?
This circle?
And that I think that the way that you ensure, in some sense, life is by subordinating life to love. In love, so that when you're being for somebody who they need you to be in that moment, it draws out of you wisdom. That wisdom really is how to navigate that. It shores them up so that as they grow, they can do for others what you've done for them. And so the love spreads outside of the confines of your suburban home and
has
into
a contagion effect almost.
Hey, yeah. A positive, life-giving contagion. You almost need a word to counterbalance contagion. Because virus, right? These are very negative connotations that are entropic and lead to death and all this.
There's like a positive, whatever the positive valence.
Yeah.
Like, what is the anti-contagion?
What is the life-giving, this spreading of life? What is this thing? Creation.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever this thing is. Right? It's something like this so that you become a better person. That insofar as I can be who you need you to be, or I can be who you need me to be,
right?
Then you can be all that you are and help spread that same wisdom to the next person, to the next person, the next person.
Of the individual.
And it brings people together. It creates genuine unity in that now you understand me, now I understand you, and you can trust that I have your best interest at heart. Yeah. Even when I fuck it up. Right. Even when I do a terrible job, even when I forget your best interests and I start being shitty, even when I do something terrible, you'll remember that, yes, Joe was being an asshole there, even to me, and it wasn't for the good, and that was bad. I understand that he knows he's at least knows how to be a good person. And so maybe we can knock him back in the road.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like the medicine almost, like you need someone to give you the tough love, right? We call it tough love.
I'm talking even more than the tough love.
Right, it's deeper than that.
But you'll understand that the tough love is in your best interest.
Right.
I'm saying what happens when I forget your best interest, I become shitty, and I'm not being loving at all, and I'm actually bad to you, genuinely bad to you. That if you short up enough, if you really have become solid, then you'll be able to see that for what it is and be like, you'll be capable of forgiveness, and you may be capable of providing to me love.
I see.
That would be the tough love that I need to get back on track.
Right. To be the reflection, to be like, hey, dude.
So when I fall, you
get back on
go,
track. Yeah.
Knock me upside the head.
Right.
And I go, oh shit. And the next time you fall, I can knock you upside the head, and we can both regulate each other and be like, refocus, get your attention back on.
As you're saying that, what came up to mind is like bowling with the bumpers on, where people,
your good friends are your bumpers.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's really what it is. Like where people understand what you stand for, and when you start to drift off course, you have something that goes, hey, bitch.
Yeah.
Feel like, hey, get back on course. Like you're drifting, whatever that means.
There's no circumstance where love isn't applicable.
Because I mean, there's a certain level of trust, and I think part of what we were circling around is like the idea is that a lot of people find this concept of love, because we've narrowed love to this like really specific situation of, two people who are in a relationship, but you're using it in a really broad sense that would sound foreign to most people, because like, what is it like? What do you mean love? Like, hold on, what?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? Like, this sounds way more like broad or vague than
Yeah, I
what
think
we're
it's
used to.
I think it's agape,
Yeah,
which is like this
we've
like
talked about this
cosmic
in
level of love, which is what my understanding is what the Christians are talking about
the
when
broader
they're
sense of
talking
it.
about love.
Mhm.
Well, the other kinds of love, romance, and so on, are kind of expression of
Of
this
that, yeah.
highest love that's agape.
This is like the umbrella over all of it, and then there's all these other, raindrops.
Right? You're talking one facet of the other,
Yes.
and if you know all of them, you can get a really good sense of what agape is.
Yeah.
But none of agape itself is not reducible to any one of those.
Yes, that
They're
makes
just
sense.
yeah, they're
It's
just
just parts of the whole.
right. And so
But we've taken one small corner of this and said that's what love is, not the whole umbrella of it.
yeah, and it's broken down in some sense. All that we have left we hardly have love left at all. There's a song. What's her name? She's a baby mama for Elon. Grimes.
Oh, Grimes. Yeah. Like, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, who is
Yep,
it?
Grimes. There's a lyric. The song doesn't matter, but there's a lyric. She goes, "Love is just a drug from God." Okay, but you've reduced love down to
A drug.
chemistry, to a kind of chemistry. This is the materialist mindset. All it can do is reduce, and it's completely incapable of seeing the high order emergent properties of things.
I don't know if I would agree that love is a drug.
No,
Because love
agape is not a
embodies
drug.
love.
Agape isn't reducible to oxytocin.
Right.
That's the whole point, is that there are some things that are irreducible. And because science itself and the materialist mindset is reductionistic, and it thinks that by reducing things down that you're going to arrive at some kind of base truth, and there's some enormous power in that, it precludes those features of reality that are irreducible. And so it just says they don't exist. They're not real. But it's like, wrong again. That's a problem with your methods.
Right.
That's the problem. The problem isn't that love isn't real, or it's just reducible to oxytocin or something. It's that love is an irreducible concept. And if all you know how to do is reduce, then you're never going to be able to study love. And if you can't study love at a certain point, you just go, it doesn't really exist. It's just a fantasy.
Or it's just a drug.
Yeah.
Or
It's just, and you say it's
a chemical in the brain.
yeah.
Or
And we
whatever.
can just pump you full of oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine and opioids, and you'll feel, and that's basically what love is. And it's some kind of crazy imitation. It's a parodic version of love.
Yeah.
Just like Facebook is a parody of socializing,
Right.
and friendship.
Well, isn't it ironic we call the thing social media?
Oh,
But
parody.
But they're the opposite of actually social. It's like, instead it's like we're just flinging shit.
Yeah,
back and
and
forth.
Tinder is dating.
Right. Like, oh yeah, we're dating, but you're just swiping left or right on the toilet. Well,
Right, like that has anything to do with courtship. Do you see how insane this engineering style mindset is when it leaks into every facet of the ineffable?
Part of the problem is that you hear people talk about this all the time. It's like, how do you summarize yourself using the dating app as an example? It's like, how do you summarize yourself in the world, like to present all of you in a few in a few images and like a 120 character description? You don't, because it's impossible for you to give anyone a real sense of who you are with two-dimensional things, because you're a three-dimensional being. And so like the only real way to know people is to be interacting with each other in a real environment with real people.
And really with your guard down.
Yes.
Which is to say, it's to elucidate another corner of this doing mindset.
Yes.
It's to say that you can't have an objective in
One
mind.
of the
You
things
have to be willing to let go and just be.
Yeah, they talked about this. I forget where it was, but they were talking about basically when you start bringing someone you're dating around friends is when people actually really get a sense of who you are, because it's not about how you interact with the one person. It's really about how you interact with your friends and how your person you're dating sees you interact with everyone around you. how they interact with you gives them a sense of your true character, because you can't put on a face with all of those people.
Can.
And people have done, I think, is a heightened example, but it's really how do you become friends or really get to know people, is that when you are always spending either one-on-one time or you don't really have a social network in a real sense, we perverted these things by using the online variants of them, is that you actually are it's a network of your interactions with all of the people that you regularly interact with, that people get a sense of who you are indirectly because of how you carry yourself and how those people that are loosely tied to you respond to you, or even strongly tied, like your parents or siblings or best friends.
It's kind of cool. That's cool. Like, I'm just reiterating what you're saying in my own words, but that you can put on a performance for one person, and that person can draw out a niche element of myself to which they can correspond. And then there's other parts of myself that correspond with other kinds of people.
It's like an Overton window, I guess, too. It's like some of this, you don't even realize how you interact with people.
Yeah, each individual has an Overton window, an acceptable number of things that can be said or talked about or dealt with. And that you get narrowed to a kind of person when you're only talking to one person. And you can hold up that performance for a long time if they never see you around everybody else. But the moment they see you around all the different kinds of people and contexts, then suddenly they see all these different other elements of yourself, and they can go, "You're a lunatic."
Yeah, right.
And this guy's crazy. But it also, you can imagine that having a community unifies you as a personality, because now you have to incorporate all
the facets that you are.
All these different persons that you can be, these different personas that you can wear, have to actually be reconciled with one another, because you're not just interacting with one person.
Right.
You're interacting with everybody.
And the other thing that's important is that we actually have an intuitive sense that these things are important, because how many people have stressed about, now it's the holiday season, right? And you're going to bring your significant other around your family.
Yeah.
Why do we have that level of anxiousness? Is because we hope that the way we carry ourselves are connected to is like we are seen in the same light with our friends and our family. And that's why it carries weight, is we have an intuitive sense of the importance of the social network, but we've removed ourselves so that we only see their extended social network a handful of times in a year.
Yeah.
That we've shot ourselves in the foot. But be able to heighten those like bonds between the most important relationships in our lives.
Yeah. It's a sign of, I don't know how to behave around these people.
Yes.
I think you should relax.
Again, back to the being.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You know why you don't know how to interact with these people? Because you don't spend any time with them. That's why. It's not because there's something terribly wrong. Just you'll learn as you go.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. It's going to be fun.
What's funny is like the idea of like when you're a child, the anxiety of like becoming friends with people doesn't even really resonate.
Hey, you just run around going, yeah.
You're just a ball of emotions.
Then you become a teenager, and then you learn.
Right. Fairly. But then like as we get older, it's like when you're like, how do you become friends with people? Because you're so fucking busy with your life and you have your own responsibilities or whatever. And then anxiety is like reintroduced into that equation. And really what it comes down to is it's not about like, oh, well, we have to go do this thing or we don't have any shared interests. It's like, you just got to be together and kind of embrace the awkward, like whatever it is, awkward part of it. There's always going to be that. You don't know what they're like. They don't know what you're like. And you have to find that overlap, to use the Venn diagram. Like you're like two circles and you don't know how to overlap. But with given enough time, those circles overlap to some degree. But there's still always going to be some overlap. And some people are just not going to overlap that much with. Or there'll be like really specific things. Like certain people will be, well, that's the sports guy. Or me and him like to play golf together or whatever, the thing that just the relationship coalesces around. And it's okay. Like not every relationship needs to be this profound shifting thing. Like, wow, like we can just go out, like get lost in the woods, do shrooms and whatever. Like not everyone's going to want to do that. And that's okay. You probably don't want to do that with everyone either.
For some people, I would be like, absolutely not.
No way. Like I might end up dead or lost.
That's part of it too, is and people are afraid of what happens. Like what happens if I you can't get along with my mother-in-law.
Right.
And you don't get along with your mother. Like if you pay attention,
You find a way to cope.
you'll figure it
you,
out.
Yeah, you just got to embrace it.
You're afraid that your system isn't suited for this person, and it might not be. But the solution to that isn't to avoid it, nor is it to try to hem it into your system and contort it and to fit in this little box that you have in your head. It's to just pay attention again.
Yeah.
And it'll update the system and you'll master the thing. And you might, now that becomes more difficult if you've decided ahead of that there's all these elements of you, perhaps like aggression, that are intrinsically bad. And so you keep them buried
like
into
relabel certain behaviors.
Forbidden that. You've forbidden that kind of behavior in yourself. And now you're being confronted with the kind of person for whom it is absolutely necessary. And when they push your buttons, you need to be like, back the fuck off.
Right. Yeah.
And they
be able to turn on certain things.
They need to know it. You can't just say like,
or stand your
ground.
ground.
Not do that? Because the people who really push and push, well, they won't even hear it.
Right. They're used to getting their way. So they just use the same tactics on everybody.
And they'll just bulldoze you.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to stand your ground and be like, no.
Yeah.
Then you are going to be miserable. But that's not because that's not the failure of attention or love or being. That's a failure of that's your failure to integrate this part of yourself. You have, for some seemingly arbitrary reason, denied some whole element of some huge capacity that you have.
Right. You decided that establishing boundaries is, I'm not that kind of person.
And maybe you had a really aggressive parent and they were talking down to you and demanding, and you just were like, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah. So you just bow out.
But it turns out you need to have something to do with that because it's there for a reason. It's not like you evolved that capacity for no reason.
Yeah.
It's been useful for billions of years. And you think
we've evolved beyond that, Joe. Society has solved those problems.
And the people who think that shit are blinder than anyone else.
I know.
But it really, that's what it is. And that's what Jung is getting at with shadow work.
Seeing the parts of you or the facets of you that you don't want to acknowledge.
And I think there's a misunderstanding in the culture about this. That shadow work is indulging your vices, indulging these bad parts of you, and really going into it. I think this is another failure of Peterson for not being clear enough about this. Mm-hmm. I think he probably understands this correctly, but he just wasn't great at communicating it.
Yeah, because there's like a nuance to it.
Yeah, it's the nuance is that, yes, you should make contact with those terrible parts of yourself. Not ignore them, not pretend they don't exist, not cut yourself off from them or dissociate in some weird way, but to actually confront them. But you shouldn't be indulging them. Just acknowledge it, right? And one of the best things is just noticing when somebody bothers you, somebody pisses you off with this.
Like irritated or something.
This guy's always like this, and it's always every time. And why does he have to behave? He just yaps all the time. Thinks he fucking knows everything. The more you interrogate that in yourself, you start to,
why is that irritating me?
Why does that bother me so much? I don't even know the guy. What you'll find is often that it's actually a part of yourself that you don't really like.
Right.
And that he's reflecting back to you.
He's triggering something that you...
Yeah, that you don't want to deal with. You're like, no, I do talk too much. And I do have a tendency to kind of to space out and just bowl people over or sometimes I do think I'm smarter than everybody and I don't like that I do that.
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be, that thing is what you're seeing. She thinks she's so pretty. Well, maybe this is a projection. Maybe you do that and you know that you do that, but you don't want to admit.
Well, this is like deluding yourself or delusions, right? That's what you're describing. It's like these self-delusions that you project unknowingly.
Yeah.
Onto others, but they're really mere like reflections of parts of you.
Yeah.
That you've chosen to disregard.
Yeah. And you can even make a virtue out of not having really to circle back to that. So you could be like, I think aggression is intrinsically bad and I'm not aggressive. Therefore, I'm a good person. And then you see somebody else being aggressive or having an attitude or getting angry and maybe even in an appropriate circumstance. And then you'd be like, why are you doing that? And then suddenly you get a little hit of superiority.
Right, yeah.
Right. So all that can play out too. And you can do that with
Or
yourself.
you see the person who refuses to not like anger. I think you see this more often, like people who don't like being angry, and then they like something sufficiently pisses them off, and then they like go and punch holes in walls or something. Or,
berserk.
yeah, they like let it out because they've been repressing that emotion so hard.
Which is another version of the play drive with the dog we were talking about.
That's interesting.
It's the same. You never learn to integrate the anger.
It's height. Yeah, it's
You
heightened.
didn't regulate the anger. You just dissociate from it. And then when it finally gets strong enough that it can burst out, you have no means of regulating it. It just goes fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And, some people get
spin out.
I mean, murderous.
Yeah, right.
Right? It can be bad, insanely dangerous. But it's more dangerous to ignore it or to cut it off from yourself than it is to just learn slowly.
I feel like the thing that we've been circling is that society has failed miserably. It's like one side, people are too into their emotions, and on the other side, we're too into like object oriented.
Right. So it's denial or it's indulgence.
Yeah. It's like,
and we're in one or the other.
You just seesaw back and forth.
And I think it's sex coded. I think that the men.
That's what I was kind of leaning towards too. Is like, wait, I didn't ever actually caught on to this.
I think the men drift into doing mode and then they deny the existence of anything that doesn't fit to their system.
I definitely did that.
Yeah.
In my early 20s by very.
Oh, me too.
Oh, those are useful. Chuck them all.
Oh yeah.
Cut them off.
I was in the Marine Corps. Like, I'm gonna become a machine.
Well, especially the military is like that's like fucking. Like the SWAT team of emotions is objective.
They probably are training. So I'd say that they're probably the most remarkable warriors are the ones that stay conscious and
allowed to integrate
all of that, and that they're actually.
I wonder if it's like the special forces guys or something like.
And you get a mix. I think some of the special forces guys are dudes who just went through hell. They're very, very young. And they cut that shit off pretty early.
Oh, so they're almost like machines,
they're
basically.
Just built for chaos, and they live there, and they'll live there till the day they die. And you have another type that are, I think, exceedingly rare, and those people have integrated it all.
Grounded people.
Yeah, there's something like warrior monks who really,
Oh, so they're like the mythological kind of like
they're
figures that people wrote about.
Conscious the whole time.
Yeah.
Aware. I think it requires religion. I think you have to have a faith in God, meaning that there's a totality. It's an intelligence that's above you that is organizing this reality and has some purpose for you, and that you are surfing on the waves of reality, and it's going to take you to one place or the other. But it's like the wave has agency,
right?
It's trying to bring you somewhere,
guiding you somewhere,
and that they're like, if I die, I die, and that's part of it.
I feel like we don't really believe in those kinds of things.
We have no meaning. We killed all the meaning. So much so that when we try to create meaningful stories, we hop back to the medieval era. I mean, like the Destiny games are they're just the medieval era. And all of our fantasy stuff, it's all medieval. We go back to the Christian age.
Are we back in the Middle Ages?
Every time we try to think of something meaningful, we hop back to the last time things were meaningful. And crazy because that was 700 years ago.
I was going to say like 1,000 years ago when we had kings and knights and whatever. And even when you look at sci-fi, what do? It's still like in the Middle Ages.
Yes.
It's fiefdoms and kingdoms just on
Dune
galactic
is like
scale.
that.
That's what I was thinking.
40K is like that. They just update it with the tech. And
it's just fancy lasers and swords, potentially.
Star Wars.
Or laser swords.
Yeah.
They're fucking warrior monks.
So all the meaning is back there.
This is weird. I've there's always been an overlap. Like they even categorize fantasy and sci-fi in like the same categories at bookstores.
Yeah.
So it was like, wait a minute.
It's just one kind of looks forward and one
is looking backwards, or at least, or maybe parallel.
They're both a fantasy and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
So that's just, I don't know. Yes. It tells you how bereft we are of any sense of meaning. We literally think we got, like with the existentialists, you see them being like, there's no meaning to life. We project all that meaning into life. But the absurdity of it all is where the fun is. You like Sisyphus, you understand that this is all meaningless, but you're happy anyway in rebellionism.
The funny thing is, like, I was going to say, like, Sisyphus, though, is like, we think it's like this. I think most of us need like we get to carry our own boulder. And it's like there's something that you should choose to carry on.
This is the Sisyphus left the cross. Motif, this
Without the
terrible
meaning.
suffering, without any meaning.
Yeah.
Whereas when Christ dies, he reforms the whole world.
That's what I was trying to get at, is that it's just a pointless boulder. It's like you get to choose the thing that is meaningful.
The thing is, I don't think you choose it.
That's true.
That's part of the problem, is me picking it is part of the problem. Because then it's like, well, if I'm going to pick it, it's going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll until the day that I
guess that's right. I guess I was putting in my own valence to it, which is that I would a higher purpose than myself.
The thing is, this is part of why I think cosmos is love, like why God is love, is because it isn't just a tyrannical imposing of a task or duty upon you. It takes you into account. It's that you understand that you have a particular nature and nature has a particular nature, and that those things fit together in a unique way. And the way that they fit into each other is your purpose. It's that you're in correspondence, like it fits together. I fit to some niche in reality, but also I'm talking to it, that I move one way and it moves another way. It responds to my action, and that response prompts an action from me, and that we're dancing together.
So it's kind of like this embodied feeling, kind of like what we were saying, like when you're feeling like you're doing something that you're going in the right direction, like intuitively feel this when you meet someone for the first time, like whether or not we call it now vibing with someone.
Yeah, right.
But like that is a real thing.
Yeah.
Where like when you do things, like your body kind of sends you messages as to like you're on the right path or you're on the same wave, like all these language kind of bubbles up to give you signals.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like you feel like you're on the right path, even when you do certain tasks. Like, for instance, what I was trying to get at when I said finding your cross to bear, and it's not so much as you internally asking, it's you look around and the things that you've done, and then you feel like, okay, what is the things that, even though it's work, you feel like you're drawn to, like there's something that draws you to do certain things or have certain interests, right? It's still a lot of goddamn work, don't get me wrong, but you still have the certain innate pulls. And you know, in some sense, it feels like your responsibility to do, like, play those things out. You almost like use a Petersonian. And in some sense, like I feel like that around like knowledge and like these kind of conversations, is that it's like the responsibility to do certain things, or like even just doing your job well, right? If you're put in a system at like work, you can just go through the motions, or you could do it well and try to make life easy for your coworkers at the very least, right? Because it's your responsibility to, you know, make sure that your little corner of what you do is as organized as it possibly can, so that you're not making it actively more difficult for others.
You're right.
You know, it's like you start little, right? You do that, and then it just inches itself out.
You get better and better.
And so that's kind of what I see a lot of this, like, it's like this agentic way of like taking responsibility for what you have. It's not even that you have control over, it's more of like what you can at least put an impression on.
Yeah. It's you're a better and better dancer.
Yeah, you're like, because you're in contact with reality. It's what you know and what you understand, and how do you articulate that?
Yeah, and I'm not making, like, if I'm in a dance with somebody, I'm not like, okay, I'm not grabbing their leg, now you step here and grabbing their leg.
Yeah,
you
right,
step
you can't do
and
that.
then I step. I'm not in control of it. It's that there's an understanding that there's an agency beyond you that you have to allow to correspond.
The dance is like a dialogue.
Yeah, and you can move with it. I wish I could remember. I heard this from Eric Weinstein, who was talking about a couple of jazz musicians, and I think it was Miles Davis and another guy. And one guy was playing like the piano or something, and he said, he's like, I played the wrong note, and Miles made it the right one. Right. So you see how even a mistake can be taken back up into the dance and made a part of it.
Right.
It's not just, it's not something we go, oh shit, we just cleave out and pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's actually, I allow for that to be true, and then I move with it. And that's happening all the time.
I guess the kind of the point we're saying is like life is improv. You're like, you can't rerun it.
Yeah.
Life is constantly in motion, and you just like, well, you messed up there, but next time we can try to, you know.
Yeah. I can yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm allowed to yes and it.
It's playing yes and in real life.
Right.
Real time.
Which is leaving, because if you're a young man, right, you think that you're going to go to the bar and you're going to flirt with some girl, and you've been rehearsing in your head all these James Bond
Right.
lines that you think are
Yeah,
going to
being
work.
smooth.
Yeah. As if anybody who was smooth was ever thinking about being smooth when they did it.
Again, doing
Yeah, they're James Bond. Oh man, well, what if I say this? What if I say shake and not stirred, and then she really likes that? Oh my god,
that would be hilarious. By the way, like doing the Monty Python version of James Bond.
we can have a 13-year-old James.
The nerdy James Bond guy who's like sure of himself.
Right. If that's what you're
James
doing,
Bond's awkward first steps to being despised.
if that's what you're doing as a young man, you did it wrong. And part of it is a paranoia that you're going to do it wrong.
Yes.
Right. That you think that you have to have this perfect system
of this,
this utopian ideal for how you're going to get along with this girl that gets in the way of you actually talking to her as a person. Like both in that it makes you terrified and you don't even talk to her in the first place, but also that even if you get yourself to talk to her, there's an expectation that's blinding you. That's an overlay between you and the pure experience that is occluding all the information she's trying to give you, whether that's good or bad. And so you wonder, I can't tell if she likes me or not. She told you already. You just weren't fucking paying attention.
You're just not listening.
If you just look and not have an expectation, just watch, communicate with the person, listen to what they're saying, respond to what they're saying, then you'll learn. You'll figure it out.
The moral of the story is you just kind of have to learn how to just be in the moment with this little preconception of like, I'm just going to go to have fun or whatever. I don't even know what, I don't know what else.
Part of what's so gross about hookup culture is that it ends up precluding that real connection with somebody. Because if what you're trying to do is just get another notch on your belt, and you're thinking about sex all the time and that validation, the ego hit that you get, oh, look how fucking great I am because I'm sleeping around and all these other losers can't do it. That whole mindset, again, you're coming in with an expectation.
Right. You have a goal already, right? It's again, the same goal-oriented way of moving through the world.
We'll see in her is the path to sex.
Yeah.
Only the things that stand out that indicate you're moving forward or moving backward in relationship to sex as a goal will be the only things that your perceptions will consider relevant. And you'll miss 99% of it.
Yeah. Well, and the opposite side of this is the Alex Cooper, where she's like, how to not catch feels, like how to be a woman, but act like a guy does in dating, like just sleep around with as many people as possible or whatever.
Yeah, then you'll just turn off yourself.
Yeah.
In order to go through with something you don't have any intrinsic interest.
So she's kind of contradicted herself because she's now married.
Who is this?
She's like a Call Her Daddy podcast.
Oh.
But she's now has a new co-host who's.
Well, thank you for misleading an entire generation of young women to disastrous effect, only to bow out of your own philosophy and get married. Oh, how insanely irresponsible.
Number 4 podcasts on Spotify, I think, something like that. But still, we're coming full circle to like the just desserts of this entire thing of like chasing the wrong thing. But I recently heard today on a podcast with Mac and Murphy, he does like relationship research.
Resilience? Resilience research?
Relationship.
Oh, relationship.
Like mating, like evolutionary mating stuff, like stated revealed preferences, things like that. But he was saying, though, that Gen Z, even though marriage rates have gone down overall, Gen Z is on the road to being more married than previous generations. They're on the path to having highest marriage rates as from the 1950s.
So it's trending upward?
Trending upward for the youngest generation now. And it looks like because they're being intentional, they will have lower divorce rates currently. Because
the predictors for divorce aren't present in their behaviors. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good too.
So we're seeing shifts in some of these, even though there's a bunch of issues with Gen Z, it seems like the people who have figured it out seem to be doing it in healthy ways that are positive indicators. This is the white pill that I was trying to tell you a while ago, but I think this is a good point to bring it up. Like, there are issues, yes, and there's lots of, but I think the people who are choosing to get married are basically ignoring all of the signals that's the online culture, like the terminally online people are arguing and throwing shit at each other about. Then they're like, well, I found my person. So
I mean, it's not hard to turn back to marriage when you see how much of a fucking mess all this has become.
Well, I mean, because the way I think about it is, what we were saying is this plurality of choices. To really summarize everything we've talked about is that the paradox of too many choices is coming home to roost. This paradox of more is always better.
Yeah,
And what Gen Z is figuring out a little bit before our generation is that when you decide to choose one other person, all of a sudden this idea of more choice is better just evaporates, because you don't need to think about all the choices you could be making. You just have this one person, and now your world solidifies. And now you have your little world, and then like maybe your parents and your friends. And all you have to do is manage that. And if you can manage that, the rest of the world is noise. And you don't need to think about what Twitter's caring about in a day, or what new things the current political moment is going on. That is because like I feed the kid, or I gotta make dinner, get home from work, or whatever.
And really, there is an element of humility baked into that. Like, if I'm spending all my time reading about Palestine and Israel,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
And it's not because it isn't important or there isn't real suffering happening or anything
Yeah,
like
but
that.
there's a diaper that needs changing.
But part of it really is, it's this arrogance that I'm going to be the one that fixes this, that I know the right answer here, that I can determine the future. And if only I would stand up and say something then and hold a placard, then everything would change. How stupid are you? This is embarrassing. Like, really, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's like, take stock of where you're at. Like, I'll speak for myself. I work at a brewery.
Yeah, right.
I work at a brewery and we're just skating by.
Yeah.
I am in no position to go to be like, let me tell you about geopolitics.
Come on your nose and say, I know how to fix this.
Oh, that way. Just like multiple thousands of years, like 1,200-year-old conflict, or 1,300 years. When did Islam come into existence?
Yeah, right. It's over 1,000 years old.
Let there be peace in the Middle East. I've come. The Abdicating is here. Like, oh, shut the fuck up.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting. Like, we've gotten to the point where, because we have this infinite access, that it's really easy to get ourselves twisted about things. I don't want to say they're not important, but it provides a skewed relationship to how important it is for what you can do in your life. And so you basically lose sight of all the things that you need to get in order within your own sphere, right? The locally reversed entropy.
Yeah.
So it's like these things that are way outside of your own sphere of influence. They're important. That is true. Probably significant.
Yeah.
But realistically, care about things way outside of this aren't going to move the needle
Yeah.
in a real sense for what's going to happen in your life. Mhm. Mhm. Well, that's the other thing. Right. In the big leagues. Yeah. the larger things. Right. That's what I was thinking. I feel like it takes a certain level of humility and lack of ego, but I think part of the problem is that because of the incentive structure that is put in place by all these things, is that someone can basically step back and say, "Well, I didn't ask for the audience that I have. I just was saying what I thought or what I believed, and then look, this audience just coalesced around this, and they seem to agree with me. Like, why should I be chastised for?" I'm playing devil's
Yeah,
advocate,
please.
but why should I? Even Rogan gets this sort of like, "Oh, like, why does he platform these people, or he should be like play hardball?"
This
But then,
is
then they like, "Oh, I'm just a comedian." Like he puts his hands
yes,
up.
this is a problem, and it's a complex one. But the problem is that a comedian isn't a politician.
Right.
A comedian is a
They're
journalist.
they're like the court jester.
A comedian,
That's what they are in modern form.
yeah, a comedian certainly wouldn't pretend to be a NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And in that circumstance, it's really obvious why they're making claims of being one, or rather why they aren't strutting around like they are one. Right? Because the moment they be put on the field, the consequences of their inaptitude would be gloriously shining before everyone. Everybody would see their inadequacies. It'd be obvious that they're not an NFL quarterback. But this isn't a physical sport.
Well, yeah, because everyone can talk.
This isn't concrete.
String ideas
In an abstract space where you can talk about anything and you can say anything you want. And you can even, if you're smart, put together an argument with the facts that you have that's coherent and convincing. And if you have a little charisma, you can drag a whole bunch of people with you. Okay? This is made all the more complicated by the fact that our institutions and all the people whose credentials we would once took to be a signal of their
station,
really that they belong,
or
of their expertise, but even expertise has lost its meaning, right? That what used to be, we used to trust the institutions to say, yes, we train these people. Yes, this is rigorous. Yes, they earn their position.
Yes, they're experts at what they do.
They really know what they're talking about. And this certificate proves it. But the institutions have so much egg on their face that we don't believe anything that they say.
We've undermined that foundation. So that means we could just throw out if these people, if we disagree with them.
And frankly,
say, oh, they're not really experts.
When you
they're
have
quack.
Professors at like Harvard saying that like males and females don't really exist, then what is the difference between a professor or an expert and a comedian? Right. And that has really blurred the boundaries on this. It might be that our institutions are at a place where it's hard to trust.
Right.
They're knighting, right, of some expert. That doesn't mean that there aren't genuine differences in expertise.
Right.
That doesn't mean that that a comedian knows everything that's necessary to know, even just standards and practices in order to be a journalist. Right? There are things built into that system. There's a whole line of education and training that's necessary, even if it isn't happening with a journalist now, to be a good journalist. And unless, as a comedian, you're willing to go through
and do the rigorous,
then you shouldn't be pretending to be one. The other thing
that kind of comes to mind on the other side of this is that because of the guardrails or like the certain like unspoken taboos in the world, right? Like if you want to be a respected member of society, you don't go against the prevailing norms, during COVID and things like that. People couldn't say certain things unless you wanted to get quote unquote canceled or whatever. But what ended up happening, it seems like, is that in podcast sphere, the comedians, because they're by the nature of being comedians, they'll just say whatever is on their mind. Because if you're a good comedian, that's comes with the territory.
Yes.
And so because of that, people begin to trust comedians more because they were willing to speak their mind in spite of the negative consequences. And when they stood their ground and were either attempted to be canceled, some of them it worked. Otherwise, it didn't work for the most part. Or after certain the dust settled, it reinstantiated and ended up being more popular after such events. And so what ends up happening is, in some sense, is that it's like a reverse expertise. It's whereas instead of an actual like qualitative sense of like skill or expertise in a known category, it's more of like, oh, are you willing to be maybe confrontational or say things like, instead of walking on eggshells, becomes the championing of this event. It's not so much as like, it's more of like a populism kind of thing, to use a political term, and not really about like a truth value, right? Because like journalism is supposed to be a truth oriented thing, or like uncovering things in some sense. I'm thinking about this in real time, so it's probably not the best way to say it. So it ends up being like this perversion, because there is no outlet for these things, where there used to be this outlet inside of university, so that you could take complicated things and say things that are even taboo and ask the questions that will make people uncomfortable. But tenure was supposed to protect you so that you were allowed to do the uncomfortable thing, to provide knowledge to the world, because asking uncomfortable questions is important. Because, I mean, look throughout the Middle Ages, we used to burn people when they made the king uncomfortable, or whatever, or the church.
Right. So what we have is a huge number of problems that are all making this complicated.
I guess they're coalescing.
Right. You have the collapse of the institutions and the subsequent loss of the validity of any credential. It makes us mistrust those with credentials and considered those with credentials to be experts. And then when we lost the credential factor, we lost experts and started to think that experts were equivalent to people who had no credentials whatsoever.
Well, yeah, you flattened the dynamic.
We flattened everything.
The dynamic, the qualifier then becomes the qualifier that we use for all of social media, which is how big of an audience does that person have?
I think what comes before that is that you look for someone who's authentic.
Okay.
And the feeling of authenticity is just that it's a feeling, it's an intuition. But I think that intuition is actually similar to me.
Charlatans.
It's just similar to me.
People who agree with what you agree with.
It's a cognitive bias. It's a confirmation bias. And you just believe they're authentic because they're spouting back to you what you already agree. This guy's real. He knows what's up. He knows what I'm talking about. So, yeah. And so they get an enormous audience because they're saying exactly what they think, and just happens to be what everybody's thinking. But that's not a truth finding mechanism.
That'd be a great study to do, like surveying some of the largest podcasts or YouTube channels in the world and see like,
just do personality.
Yeah, exactly. Just do personality tests and be like, oh wait, like science YouTube channels attract a bunch of science nerds.
Yeah, what's the correspondence between the host of the podcast's personality and their audience?
Right. I'm sure there's a really strong overlap, maybe of some deviation, but
it's gonna be like the same shit.
Really strong correlation.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprising.
I really think that this is just it's a collapse of authority.
Definitely.
In the authority of I think it goes right back to the death of God again. It's that all authority once came from God.
Right.
Which means in modern speech that it means that by your fruits you'll know them. Or actually in modern speech, and not quoting the Bible. It means from whom does the good come? Right? Just see what happens. How are they behaving? Right? Let God tell you. Who is being real, who the real ones are. And just watch. But when we lost even an understanding of God and eventually our connection to reality, all the layers that were connected fell. So it was like the church fell, the monarchies fell, eventually
now the institutions,
right now, bang, one institution after another, all the way down to we don't have journalism, and the distinctions die with them in roles. So that what you have is people asking Andrew Schultz to be a journalist, and they're asking him to be a comedian, one and the same.
Right.
Without understanding that to be one is not to be another. You have to make that sacrifice.
You're asking too much from people who don't want those things, if that makes sense. Like you can't, and like you were saying, like the bubbling up, but that assumes that the person who's bubbling up from these things is willing to drop their original identity and assume the new one. Right? Because you don't just become, you can't be everything all at once. Well, and then also too, the ideal, like idolizing people, right? Like we have this predisposition to want to idolize things, but then we don't want them to be human. You know, inevitably they're going to have some controversy or some whatever comes out, or they make a mistake, whatever that means. And then all of a sudden now, get the pitchforks out, burn them.
That's what I think the left was doing. They were idealizing people, and then when they failed, then they got burned at the stake. What the right is doing is denying ideals altogether. Instead of not virtue signaling, vice signaling.
Oh,
that
they're looking at the negatives.
They're like, just have our journalists be crazy. Have our president do whatever the fuck he wants. Right. Everybody can roll in the mud together. And then what's wrong with that? At least they're both wrong again.
They're holding the mirror, because if, you idolize and then burn them at the stake because they made a mistake. The other side of that is, well, everyone just rolls around and makes mistakes, so who cares?
Nothing but mistakes. Why should they be punished for any mistake that they make?
If the president makes the mistakes, then who cares?
What are standards for?
Yeah.
And so it's another kind of collapse.
We're in a weird fucking...
It is the collapse of a civilization. That's
teeter-totter. It's weird. It's this weird inversion, the teeter-totter of like when one is in session, like when the shoe's on the other foot. We always use that word. And the older I've gotten, the more that phrase terrifies me.
Yeah, it's just an excuse for...
Because people cheer. It's like, yes, look at my side is winning. Whatever, team sports in the world. But then as soon as the other side gets their turn at it, then that side that was cheering is like, oh my God, now it's time to panic and it's the end of the world as we knew it. And then, just yo-yos back and forth. And both sides are just constantly, unless their side is winning, they're screeching.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, where is the reasonable voices that are trying to make sense of the chaos and trying to at least be reasonable? Instead of just yo-yoing back and forth, because like, well, look, the other side was doing crazy things, so we'll do crazy things in response.
It's another loss of the good. It's no surprise that
there's no higher
that died a while ago. We have no idea. At best, we reduced it in recent memory. It reduced it down to a system and then tried to behave according to the system. And we said that was good. And that worked for a little bit until inevitably reality broke through. And now we're hurtling downward.
Well, that's what I mentioned earlier with this like lack of sense that the system needs maintenance at a minimum for it to function properly, instead of just saying, well, it was here before where I got here and it's here when I'm gone.
I think people will fall it's hard to say how far we're going to fall.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're in free fall right now. And with the number of layers that we've lost and distinctions that we've lost are innumerable. We don't have politics anymore. We just don't. There's no distinction between
cult of personality.
There's no distinction between the parties, right? They're arbitrary, and I've talked to people who had worked for Biden and Rehnquist in DC, and they convinced me that this has at least been going on since Bill Clinton. Wow. Who was in some sense a Republican as a Democrat, and then Bush was something of a Democrat as a Republican, a compassionate conservative.
Oh, that's available.
Yeah, and
you're too young to even know
these necessary distinctions that allow the full expression of a necessary worldview. That actually, you need the full expression, because to try to be both at the same time is to diminish both. They have to counterbalance each other in a form of opponent processing, which is what the brain does to get really clear pictures, basically. It has a higher fidelity of reality to have opponent processing. That having the two parties, or however many you have, as full expressions of themselves in a mutual competition. Really, they're butting heads with each other, but in service of a purpose.
Right, they're still aiming at the same thing.
Aiming at the same thing, happily, even viciously arguing with each other. Or at least a lot of intensity.
Well, I was going to say, it's better to be arguing than shooting.
You would imagine that if they have a high enough of a goal, they would rein in the viciousness. Because if I want to do good, or I love you even though you're my enemy.
Because you're in service of the same thing, so it doesn't matter.
I can even insult you with a sense of decorum.
Yeah.
right? Churchill had this hilarious one where this woman,
Of course, Churchill would say something like this.
where a woman said to him, she was like, if you were my husband, I would poison your tea. And he said, if you were my wife, I'd drink it.
We don't talk like that.
Oh, it's so funny. Well, you can imagine that being even sophisticated in your language doesn't come natural. It's something that has to be trained. And if it has to be trained, you have to have a purpose for doing that in the first place. And so the loss of the purpose allows for the degradation of the quality of the language.
Yeah.
And so now you have mumble rap, and that's not random. That's a consequence of, why do I have to talk all highfalutin like?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
one of the things that, like, I remember listening to, it's probably Dan Carlin or one of those other like political U.S. history type podcasts. One of the episodes about Abraham Lincoln and how Lincoln, after he got into office, and he did something that no one had done even in his time, which is he went to some of his staunchest critics and invited them to join his cabinet, to have like even the people who criticized him strongly to like invite them in to have strong opinions so that he didn't just fill his people with like yes men.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, when you hear that now as someone who lives in this time period, like that would never happen.
Yeah, you could.
Someone extending olive branch, even within your own party, who's like totally against you.
Yeah, I don't think it could work now.
Probably
because now we're moving in such different directions that to invite somebody from the other party into your cabinet is really just to invite destruction.
Right. Just spin your wheels for
no reason. Because you're their enemy. It's not that we disagree on something or we're heading towards the same goal. We're actively opponents to one another.
Yeah.
We are a problem from one another. And that person is just, bring them in as sabotage. That's all that it is. That working is predicated on you and them being actually on the same page. That's gone. There's no politics.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is dead. They don't exist. It's like they've been routed. And you've got a bunch of randos kind of with their arm blown off, walking around the battlefield and shell-shocked. And that's it. That's what you got. A bunch of shell-shocked politicians. And they're still talking like it, like, come on, what the hell did Kamala Harris say the other week? It was so tone deaf. Oh, she said that she didn't pick Buttigieg as her VP because he was a gay man and America wasn't ready for that. And it's like, that framing is why you lost. Because people are sick of the identity politics. See, you haven't figured it out. You're still talking like it's a decade ago. You still think it's 2015. And you just haven't contacted reality since. Totally fucking out of it. Oh, it's unbelievable. You're not in reality. You don't have any idea of what the pulse of the culture is whatsoever. If after the Dems have lost twice now to Donald Trump, who is a joke, twice you've lost to it, and you haven't figured the fuck out.
Two different candidates.
Nobody went, maybe we should take this seriously and really, take stock of what we've done and try to figure out where we went wrong and why that is. No, none of that happened. Not fucking any of it. If that's how you're talking, none of that happened. And
they don't even have a clue why.
No, so they're dead. Dems are dead. Republicans are fracturing more and more by the minute.
Oh my God.
To increasingly insane things, which I'm trying to ignore to the best of my ability. But once in a while, Candace Owens says that Freud should be Sigmund Freud. And I'm like, you're such a fucking idiot. I'm like, I can't believe the argument was literally, you should know that Sigmund Freud was really a fraud. And therefore, his family are a bunch of frauds, and his family is in a bunch of positions of power. And that indicates that the positions of power are all fraudulent. Right. So she's going this insane stretch to try to say that the establishment, all people who are in power, are all corrupt elites that are doing nothing but scheming, and it's this evil cabal, and they've been a fraud since the beginning. And Freud being a fraud I didn't provide any evidence for why he's a fraud, nor do I have any fucking idea what I'm talking about. But the fact that he's a fraud is an indication that this whole thing is being corrupt from the outside.
What is happening?
I'm like, oh, you're just a lunatic.
I don't spend any time in this world.
I know, I shouldn't, and I'm pretty good at not attending to politics at all.
I've basically bowed out of almost.
Yeah, but I saw that one clip came across. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
All I can see is there's two versions of crazy, and they're like cousins on both sides. One is this one, the left's out into this weird identity politics thing.
It's dying, it's dead.
Right.
It's so close to dead. It won't be long before the Republicans are dead too.
Yeah,
That's
well, the
already
Republicans
happened.
are spinning out into this like secret society, like everything's just been like it's all cabals of fraudulent
Same
hucksters.
woke shit. The woke did. They were like, there's the powerful in the center, and there's no truth.
Oh yeah, they're just dressing up what the powerful is in a different clothing.
And the powerful are white people, white men, and
Right.
they've been accruing power to themselves. And it's all about identities, and they've been pushing marginalized identities to the off to the side, off to the periphery, in order to ensure their own power. That whole game is just being recoded to right speak now, where it's the establishment and the
whatever
and there's this
establishment.
dark and dirty establishment that
I
exists,
know.
and that establishment has just been accruing power to itself, and it's nothing but corruption. And
I know.
it pushed our margin. They won't say marginalized, but marginalized political systems or political identities off to the margin. Fascism. And William F. Buckley was a bastard for saying that the fascists shouldn't be a part of the American right, you motherfucker. And Hitler wasn't so bad, and I really doubt that it was that many Jews. And now they're playing this whole fucking game.
Oh my God.
And they're saying that because the establishment said that World War II was this particular way, and we don't trust the establishment, the inverse must be true. So it must be that Winston Churchill was the bad guy, and
yeah, right.
and Hitler wasn't that bad, and
it was overplayed.
I'm so tired of this.
What are we doing?
How about the truth is determined by power?
That's a good
determined
one.
by power. I don't care how powerful you are. That's not what the truth is.
Right.
And that's also to say that they don't determine the truth. They can try to push a narrative for as long as they want.
Well,
it
this is
never
why
survives.
Death of journalism is a major problem
Yes.
because journalists are in service of the truth regardless of who's in power.
It's,
or at least when done right.
if there's a meteor flying towards Earth,
Oh my God.
and the king of planet Earth is like, no, there's not. And then someone's like, yeah, there is. And he shoots him. And then another guy goes, I think that's a meteor. And then he shoots him. And then all the scientists get together and they're like, no, we're going to speak truth to power. And he gathers up all the scientists and he shoots all of them. And everybody just keeps dying. And now nobody wants to say it. And everybody's quiet. And nobody's saying that there's a meteor. And now it's even at the point where everybody sees a fireball hurtling towards Earth. And they go, it's not even a thing. I will look at, there's no meteor. What are you, how dare, don't you say that around me. I'll call the cops on you. Don't you think that I think that there's a meteor? And you know what'll happen? The meteor hit Earth.
Right. And then we all get,
everybody gets annihilated.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Reality will come and slap you upside the head real
There's
quick.
no way out of it.
Yeah.
And for supposed Christians to be talking on, like Tucker Carlson and these other people, to be talking about, to say that they're Christian and then in the same breath to ignore that God is the truth and God is reality and no amount of corruption is going to change that, and truth will always assert itself.
Right.
To try to play this woke game and to say that they believe that at the same time reveals an internal contradiction. God is the truth. Just don't try to resurrect marginal political identities in order to counterbalance the lies of the powerful. Just speak the truth. And if you don't know what it is, if you can't get the facts straight, if things are too complicated and it's all become chaotic, then don't say anything.
Yeah.
And only say what you think to be true.
This reminds me of the quote in Chernobyl that opens it. Every lie incurs a debt to the truth.
It's such a brilliant show. And that line is perfect.
Just finished listening to a biography of that book. It's probably what inspired the show, where it's like an accounting of the entire, from start to finish, basically, and what predicated the collapse of the Soviet Union, which I think, as you were describing what's going on currently, strikes me as this kind of like putting blinders on from reality. But it's the same idea. By putting blinders on it, pretending he's going in a different direction. Like if you don't acknowledge the issues that are at play, but you say, oh, well, this is actually what's going on, pretending that's what's actually going on. Not saying that some of it isn't true, or at least there's grains to what some of this is saying. By believing that the system has to operate a certain way, it's like you're planting the seeds for the downfall. And so, like, to use the Chernobyl example, is that the Soviet Union downplayed the risk of the disaster for as long as they could. And they didn't want to tell the world, they didn't want to tell even their own people how bad it was. By the system having its own defense mechanisms to say, well, we're the Soviet Union. We don't have these kinds of mistakes because we're harnessing, and they use it. They had it in Pripyat. It was harnessing the peaceful atom. They were trying to rehabilitate the image of the atom. And there's like billboards about in Russia, in Ukraine, where they had, it's make the atom a worker, not a weapon or something like that. So here, like, I mean, like when you have this utopian, to kind of bring it back what we're talking about, like this idealized view of something, instead of treating it with the reality of what it is, you put blinders on and it causes an entire collapse of society, which within, I think, 10 years of the disaster, the Soviet Union dissolved.
Right. It tells the veneer is cracked.
It showed you the whole system was on faulty ground.
I don't think the emperor's wearing any clothes.
And part of it is, which is unfortunate, is that Gorbachev we wanted to actually a lot of reforms and try to steer it in a different direction than where it had been going. Just the behemoth, and the people who got in the way of that vision, who saw it a different way,
and a certain
undermined it, because they felt it was not in the Marxist or Lenin viewpoint.
They're clinging to something that's already dead, and then the artifice collapses under its own weight.
Not ironically, at the same time, they had pulled out of a war in Afghanistan and a few other things that sound eerily familiar.
The death of empires. Everybody talks about Afghanistan being where empires are going to die.
Like eerily familiar to our own. We just got there a little bit later.
Apparently, there's two things you don't do. You don't invade Russia in the winter, and you don't go into Afghanistan, period.
Yeah, don't just let it do whatever.
Let them do whatever there, but let them do their thing. Don't worry.
Or I find the book to be oddly fascinating, or that story is uniquely illustrative. Just the invisible power that you don't even understand it. Because one of the things that's crazy about it is that when you walked around those areas, because we don't know what radiation is, like our bodies are not adapted to it. Like we have skin protection from the sun, but at the levels of radiation that the disaster had triggered, by the time you had symptoms, it was too late. And you didn't know that you'd gotten a lethal dose of radiation before it was too late. And because it was sunny out and it didn't look like anything weird had happened, so people just blissfully ignorant. Like we have the failing of institutions is so like, but now we've actually up to like an 11, because now you have people who can go online and have people who say, well, don't trust the institutions, don't get the vaccines because they're dangerous or whatever. There are reasons to be cautious about some of these things, but wholesale throwing the baby out with the bathwater because we distrust the institutions is a recipe for and then on top of that, this whole individual is the island, but we don't live on an island. We live in a society. And even though you can make your own decisions, your decisions have repercussions along with
enormous repercussions.
Like we've been seeing outbreaks of measles and different diseases that have not appeared in like 50.
I've heard this. I learned a new word recently.
Tell me.
It's cacistocracy.
It's like, it sounds like tackling an hyena.
It's led by the worst.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it's caca might even be etymologically.
Cackling is what I think of that as, like.
It's case, but caca means poop or to defecate. And I know it's so funny. Led by shitheads. I think we're not already there.
Yeah.
And I'm not even making that much of a political statement. I'm making a statement about what it looks like for a civilization to fall apart. It's that at the end of the day, you're led by people who have no business leading.
Right. You let the worst, or people who have no actual skills in running anything.
And in the same way that you end up having comedians being asked to be journalists. It's not even that they're necessarily pretending to be journalists. They're very honest about being comedians, but their audience is demanding of them journalism when they're in no position to do it. And so that's the failure of the audience to make a distinction between the roles. And that's all of us have a responsibility for that. But it's also the failure of the comedian to say, no, I am not. I will not partake about that in
Right,
that.
that's not my
And to have
job.
boundaries around what they do. Right. So it's a failure of the distinction on the audience level and the comedian level. But in the same way that you have journalism undermined by people who are of no business being there,
Mhm.
you have people who have no business being politicians being asked to be
Yeah,
politicians
to step into that
and being
role.
willing to step into the role.
Right. Because they're opportunists.
For their motivations. And they might even
Yeah.
have good motivations. They might be honestly like, I think things are corrupt. Somebody has to do something about this.
So they're trying to step
No
into
one's
it.
stepping up even. No one but me is stepping up. So even the people who should be taking on the role won't take the fucking responsibility and do what they should be doing, make the sacrifices that they should be for the country and everybody else around them.
Well, yeah. Well, therein lies the
So
to making sacrifices.
so who else? The best of us won't step up. That leaves
the not so
second
much
best,
yeah.
or third,
Yes.
or 8, or
Yeah.
97th.
We're kind of getting at it. All of this is like we're trying to find the North Star or multiple North Stars. It's the prevailing winds, like any sort of guiding post.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to get there until you hit the truth.
Yeah.
And
But it seems like.
And the truth is alpha and omega, meaning that when it's alpha because it's preconception. Before you,
it's the first, the original.
It's experience without conception from which you draw your conceptions. And so when you finally let go of all your understanding and you escape Plato's cave and you stop talking about shadows and you meet reality
Right now, and
you have shadows commenting on shadows, and it's shadows all the way down to the pit of hell. And when it's that the truth is what you see when you escape this cycle of shadow and nonsense and you meet reality in the bear without an expectation, without asking anything of it, you just see what it is. It's I am. That's the alpha. And the omega is the aspiration. It's that thing in some total as spirit, is the totality that you're operating on. It's that you aspire to be in this place. You want to be, that's the pinnacle. It's the foundation and the pinnacle. Until I think we're not going to understand the pinnacle again until we bounce right off of bare reality.
I was going to say, like, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a moment where there's not going to be anything to fall.
It's literally come to Jesus moment.
Right. That's the word I was just
like. They have a moment where their life gets so fucked that they either, if they continue down that path, or they try to turn it around, and then they realize that, yeah, I can't do this on my own. I can't. The ego can't. I have to.
We have to subordinate.
The matter so much.
Yeah, right. Effectively, that's what it comes down.
My job is just to surf with reality.
Yeah,
not to make it.
Well, we don't. How could we? If reality was here before us, it'll be here after us.
Yeah.
We're just here for
it's okay.
A blink. Yeah. We can hopefully leave it a little bit better than we found it.
Hell yeah.
At least theoretically.
That's the way.
1%, right? Like you said.
And you don't have to wait to see it get better either.
No.
If you really love the people around you, if you really love the world, you can watch it get better as you do.
Hell yeah. I think that's where we'll end this one.
Cool.
Boom.